Hello, welcome to the Heart of the Piano YouTube channel. Welcome to this new series where I'm going over the most common problems that new students come to me. They could be complete beginners, but also a lot of them are people who come to me grade 8, grade 5, diploma level, even still at diploma level. I would say this is this particular one in this series, the first one I'm starting with, is the most common problem, one of the most common, pretty much the most common problem, technical problem that people have when they come to me for lessons. Even and especially at advanced grade 8 plus diploma level. So I'm going to be looking at the Opus 9 number 1 Chopin Nocturne. It could be any piece of music. This could be absolutely any piece. I'm choosing this one because it's sort of quite obvious in here. I was teaching it recently. It's musically very obvious in here, and the student I was who's been working on this absolutely fixed it in the opening bars where I was pointing it out. Still some issues in the rest of the piece, but she's now playing the beginning really beautifully. It makes a massive difference. So this is what the problem is, and it's basically when people are playing with the hand in one particular position and then need to move the hand somewhere else, what tends to happen like 95% of the time is the very final note that gets played just before the hand gets moved gets whacked, so for example here in this nocturne, I'll put some sheet music on the top left. So we don't really need to move the hand much for any of this. Now here, this B flat, we then need to move the hand to reach, and it's like the new phrase. So what people tend to do, and I've heard this so many times, every amateur pianist pretty much plays it like this. That they'll go like this, whack. Now maybe not exactly that much, but it needs to tail away. Now there are other reasons why it needs to tail away. I'll go into those, but we don't even need to know that because there is a diminuendo here. It's very clearly marked diminuendo. It needs to go and tail away before we go. Blah, 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 blah. But by the way, I've never learned this piece, so I'm kind of half-sight reading it. So this is how most non-professionals will play it. Oh, also, I've got a B flat sticking on this piano in the left hand, so sorry if that sticks, and I really need to get this piano fixed. Anyway. That's how almost everyone plays it, and it needs to be. Fade away. And also, what most people will do as well in the left hand. Now, if you look at this F here in the little finger, I guess some people might play it with the 3. I prefer to play it with the little finger and then jump. Really, we want to be bam, 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 tail away, next one, tail away, next one, although all rhythmically even, of course. That kind of thing. And again, what most amateurs will do is and this is in everything. This is from grade 1 or pre-grade 1 beginners pieces. Every time the person needs to move the hand from one part of the keyboard to another, the very final note will get whacked. And most of the time, that's the note that actually needs to be the quietest note. So there's several reasons for this. Well, 2 main reasons that I'm going to go into. So the first is that I think people either intuitively or they've been taught, they know that they kind of want to lift their wrists. So they might want to go and then here, what they'll do on this final B flat is they'll want to lift their wrist and then move on to the next note. Now, the problem with this, and I talk a lot with my students about this because this is so common. If we're lifting our wrist and we're not really quite aware of what we're doing and what we're doing with the sound. Yes, we do want to go da, 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 dum, da, 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 da. And if you watch my hand, I do lift. I do lift from the wrist. I don't play and then lift my whole arm with my wrist quite rigid. I do lift from the wrist. And this is something that people will teach. However, in non-professional pianists, if you don't know what you're doing and you lift your wrist, what you actually end up doing is you end up pivoting your finger down, which jabs into the note. So, da 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 dum da 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 dum, and if I lift my wrist, it's I hope you can see that it makes this pivoting where the fingers, and in my case it's the thumb, but whatever finger it is, when the wrist comes up, the fingers go down and jabs into the note. And that's one of the most common reasons why that note gets jabbed. So da 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 dum 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 da 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 da. Now if I just literally lift up, it jabs the finger or the thumb right into the note. So step one, I make my students do this, and they never do this the way that I tell them, that I'm going to tell them now. So let's say that I go from the first bar. So the first bar is always the first complete bar. So this is not the first bar. That's the pickup bar. That's the, I forget the name for it, but it's not the first bar. This is the first bar. So step one for me when I'm teaching is just play it with your thumb or your finger or whatever finger you're using. Just play it with the finger without any wrist. And then once you've played that and your hand is completely quiet, and by quiet, this is a term that I think a lot of sports psychologists use and psychologists in general. Quiet means no twitching, no like, I want to go to the next thing. Zero twitching. Everything is relaxed. Nothing wants to move. And this is where everyone goes wrong because they're always like twitching, trying to get to the next thing. So first bar, dum, dum, da, 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 da. Play quietly just with the thumb. And in my hand, I can feel a temptation to lift my wrist because there is a muscle memory. I do want to lift my wrist. But what we want to do, we separate that impulse. Da, 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 da. I'm going to play with the thumb, no impulse from the wrist. It's so important. And this takes slow, disciplined practice to play with the thumb and not even don't even think about raising the wrist. If it twitches, if it gets impatient, if you're already thinking about the next thing, if you're going, oh yeah, I play that, and now I'm going on to the next thing, it will not work. You have to stop yourself. You're going to play the B flat, you're going to stop. You're going to play with your finger and you're not going to do anything else. And you're going to keep doing this until you have no impulse to do anything with your wrist. And I teach this, and people still keep trying to move their wrist, not because it's like even muscle memory, but because their brain is just going next thing, and they're forgetting that the whole point of this is just to play with the finger and not do anything else. You've got to be very firm in your intention. The intention is you use your finger, you don't use your wrist, and you stop, and you force your brain to stop going next thing. Impatience. And rushing, impatience is the biggest enemy of learning a musical instrument, and it comes from impatience. So, dum, 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 da, 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 dum, da. Just the finger, nothing else twitches. I've got no impatience. I'm not even thinking about the next thing. Then, once you are, and this is the other thing, that when I then say the next step, my students stop staying at this first step and go straight to the second step. You're not ready for the second step yet. You have to do the first step over and over and over until you're comfortable with it before you even think about the second step. But here is the second step anyway, but don't go straight to it. Dum, 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 da, 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 da. So we do the same as before. We use the finger, no twitching, nothing. Then when you're absolutely sure that your hand has been quiet, that there's been no twitching, then you lift your wrist. But do not go straight to the step. So, dum, 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 da, 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 dum. Just finger, totally relaxed. Now I lift my wrist. And you do not blur those two things in your mind. It's the finger, quiet, then you lift your wrist. You are training your nervous system, your nerves, your muscles, your brain. You're training that you play with your finger Then you lift with your wrist, and they are different things. They are completely different things. If you sort of don't really separate those two things in your head and you just lift with your wrist, you're just going to jab down with your finger. This is where everyone goes wrong. So, dum, 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 da, 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 da. Always musically as well. Always with love and musicality. Da, 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 da. Just finger, very, very relaxed. Now that my intention is clear, now I lift with the wrist. Then third step, and do not go to the third step until step 1. And then step 2 are absolutely, you are totally comfortable with the intention that you are not blurring these things. Once you can do it the way that I've described without trying to jump to the next step, you could, like sometimes I make my students spend literally weeks just on step 1. Because people get impatient and then these things get blurred. So once you've done that, then you can reduce the gap. So I can play with the finger, then lift with the wrist. But they are still separate. They are separate things. When they're not separate, you will just pivot and push down with your finger. And then as you do this more and more, you can reduce that gap until it looks like it's exactly the same time. So let me just loosen up this key. Now it might look, so when I did it there, it might look like I am playing with my finger and moving up with my wrist at exactly the same time. And in a way, I am doing those at exactly the same time. But what I'm in my mind very, very clearly doing is I'm controlling the B flat, or the last note before you jump. I'm controlling it entirely with my finger, and then the wrist pulls that finger off the key. The wrist is not having any effect on what the finger's doing. So I really hope that that's super, super clear, that by the time that you've got finger, then wrist, and by the time you've reduced those down to they're almost simultaneous, there's maybe a fraction of no, but I could actually start moving up even before I move the finger. I'm going to start moving up. But what's really clear in my nerves, in my thumb, in my fingers, in everything that's going on in my mind, my thumb is controlling the note. None of the movement of the thumb going into the note is in any way being affected by the wrist. And this is where everybody is going wrong, because they basically, what they do is it's like a trampoline. They jump and push themselves up, or you know, like how if you want to get out of a swimming pool, you shove yourself up to get yourself out of the swimming pool. That's what most people are doing when they want to get up here. So what they'll do is they'll push down to sort of leapfrog, to jump, to push away, to go to the next thing. And it sounds awful. It really doesn't sound good. So again, I'm going to play it the wrong way. And it's this what sort of people do it because there's this feeling that you push to then get to the next thing. It's not the good way. I control it with my finger. And then what happens, the way I feel my wrist, is it's like my thumb wants to stay on that note, and it stays there as long as possible. The wrist comes up until the thumb is reluctantly pulled away from the key. So it's like, and I'm going to slow it down. Sorry, the thumb plays, I come up, and then the thumb stays as long as possible until the wrist just pulls it away. It's not to push yourself up. The wrist just comes up and then pulls the thumb away. And then it's the same with the left hand. I control the note with my little finger. You can play it with the third finger. Here in my text it recommends third finger, but I like little finger. I've got relatively small hands, but also I like the sense that you finish the phrase. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not doing a tutorial on this piece, but So I play with the little finger very gently. It's the little finger that controls it. So again, I would get people, step one is play like this. Don't even think about doing anything else. Just get comfortable with this. And that final note is really gentle. Don't even think about anything else. Make sure your wrist is not twitching, going next thing, next thing. You've got to get that out of there. It just stays quiet. It's all from the finger. Then, step two, when you're ready, you stop, you make sure everything's relaxed, then you lift. And actually, when I lift, I go in the direction of the B flat there. So I sort of go to my left a little bit. So, step two, stop. It was a tiny twitch there because I'm already thinking about it. Stop, then lift. Stop, lift. Totally relaxed. Then, step three, only when you're ready, reduce that gap. But gradually reduce the gap. Don't get impatient. Just make the time slightly less. Still relaxed, now up. Still relaxed, now up. And then gradually make it less and less until they can overlap. But you know you're controlling that note with your little finger. Because the opposite then is when you're just pushing up to get to the next note. This is so important. Now, reason number two why everybody does this. I like this term that I came across in psychology called an attentional blink. So we blink with our eyes, and for the very, very brief moment when we are blinking with our eyes, we don't visually see what's out in the world, but our brain fills it in. So most of the time when we're blinking, you might be aware of it now. Now that you know you're blinking, you might not do this. But when we are just subconsciously blinking, we're not aware that we're blinking. What happens is we don't realize that for a brief moment in time we weren't seeing something. The brain just makes it seem as if the eyes were open all the time. And so I like the idea of an attentional blink. It's sort of like a more abstract, conceptual way that our mind can focus on something in a very narrow way so that we suddenly become less aware of something else. But to our brain, it's as if we think we were always aware of it, but we weren't. So what can happen? Let's say when we get to here, we're already thinking about getting to. And especially to a lot of people, that's going to be a little bit like, it's going to be, oh my God, it's the little widdly bit. It takes a lot of narrow focus. So now here, most people will not even listen to this note. They're already thinking about this, which in some ways is good because it means you're anticipating what's happening next. So I guarantee you, this is what almost everyone listening to this video, unless you're a professional pianist, pretty much everyone listening to this video, this is, I bet you, what you will be doing. You'll be going. And you won't even hear that. You won't even hear it. But if you record yourself and watch it back, you'll go, oh my God, what was that? It stands out like a sore thumb. So even when I point this out to my students, they still have no idea they're doing it because there's this like attentional blink that they're already thinking about this. So, and it's like blink because they're thinking about that and how, and they're also thinking, they're probably staring at the right hand, thinking about how the hand is going to get there. So it'll be something like this. So I'm going to stare at my hand, and I see this a lot. And and it happens with the left hand as well. And this is one of the worst things in amateurs playing Chopin, which is when the left hand tends to kind of jump about quite a lot. So if I'm staring at my left hand, I'm exaggerating it, but it does something like this, because when I'm staring at the left hand going, right, now I need to get there, right, now I need to get to this B flat, we have an attentional blink and we just stop even hearing what is happening in that moment in time. So it's like, But I'm going to ignore the left hand for the moment. Attentional blink. So the answer to this is to not have an attentional blink. And this is something that takes that I'm going to need to spend a lot of videos in the future talking about. I do have a podcast which is also called Heart of the Piano. I'll leave a link in the description below. And on this podcast, I talk a lot about how we use focus and awareness and attention, because really what we want to do is be able to play this in a way that I do not suddenly narrow focus and go into this intense narrow focus on getting here. We want to stay in this broad focus where we are not being pulled into just thinking about one limited thing. So I can go da, 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 and I hear this, I feel everything I'm doing there, as well as anticipate where I'm going. So it's like what most people are doing. Say the analogy is like we're walking down the street, and here it's not too bad. We're kind of watching where we're going. We're watching where we're going. We're watching where we're going. And then someone says, "Watch out! Watch out! Watch out! You've got to watch out for that." And then we go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! What's?" And then we find our footing again, because we've suddenly just staring at something and in such a way that we don't even know where we are in that moment in time. It's a bit too much to go into in this video. Listen to the podcast. But another thing that we can do as well is, I know a lot of people hate singing, but the thing about singing, and the reason why music teachers do a lot of singing and encourage their students to sing, if you're singing it, the chances are you are aware of the sound that you want. So, this is the important bit. Now, if you can sing it in that kind of slightly emotive way, and it doesn't matter if you're good at singing. I'll deliberately sing badly. It doesn't matter how bad it is. What's important is that you're imagining the sound and you're feeling it. Because I think especially in like England and America and a lot of Western countries, we can be really neurotic about we don't want to sing. We don't want people to judge our singing. It's not about how we sing. And in fact, most concert pianists who I go and watch, they sing and hum as they're performing in a very out of key, very out of tune way. Doesn't matter. That's not what it's about. So, but the important thing is we're going da 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 da. And if we can sing it, chances are we will play it, because to sing it, we have to be aware of the sound. If we're not singing, we can just go, must think about the fingers, the finger goes there, that goes there. We just stop even using our ears. Singing is like a test of, are we actually listening in our minds, and are we listening to what we want? Now, sometimes when I get my students to sing, because there's this kind of reserve, there's this kind of sense of, oh my God, I have to sing. They'll be like, da 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 da, because there's a sense that we have to sing the notes correctly. I mean, I know it's an easy thing to say, but ideally, the goal is we're not worrying about how we're singing. So don't be like da 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 da, because we want to hit all the correct notes. It just needs to flow, you know. Da 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 dum dum dum. Again, I'll talk about this more in other videos, but in many ways, this is one of the easiest ways to fix this. It's one of the ways that people don't like doing at first. It's out of their comfort zone. But once you get used to this, it's the easiest way of fixing it. Da, 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 and even da, ba, ba, bum, bum, da, 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 ba, 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 bum, bum. If you can sing it, you will probably just be able to play that. I think a lot of people do not realize just how much the fingers just do what the brain is hearing. If you are imagining a sound, your fingers will just do it. A lot of people learning the piano think that they have to think and consciously sort of plan how their fingers are moving and think about the technique of their fingers. But, you know, the real secret to this, if you like, if I call it a clickbaity thing, that professionals know, all professionals know, your fingers will just do the sound that you want. Sometimes you need to practice and help your fingers a little bit. But if you're not strongly imagining what you want, all the imagining, like the technique of what you want your fingers to do, will not help you. And in fact, sports psychologists absolutely know this. This is one of the first things that you learn in sports psychology, that whatever sport you learn, if you are thinking purely about the mechanics of how your body is moving, you will always perform worse than just imagining the outcome of what you want your body to do. So if you're playing golf, people study this with golf a lot. If you're about to do a golf swing and you're thinking about all the things your golf teacher, golf coach, whatever, has taught you about exactly how you do your swing, exactly how you have your feet, exactly how you move your elbow, blah, blah, blah. And if you focus on that at the time when you do your swing, you will always perform worse than if you look at where you want the ball, and as you do your swing, you focus on where you want that ball. You will always do better that way. Now, that doesn't mean that you never work on technique. You do work on the technique, but at the moment that you actually want to do your swing, everything you do is led by imagining what you want, and music is no different. Your hands do the equivalent in music of imagining where you want the ball to go. You want to imagine the sound that you want, and if you can sing it, that is proof that you're imagining what you want. Da, 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 da. Dum, 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 da, 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 da. Now, if you can do that, chances are you will not just bash it. Or if you do bash it, you'll realize, oh, hang on, because muscle memory will sometimes go against. If you've got the muscle memory of bashing it, and then you try singing, you'll suddenly realize, whoa, hang on, I've got to make my hand change from what its muscle memory was. So anyway, I'll leave it there for today. I could go on and on and on about this. There's a lot more depth to this. And, I know I have gone straight to quite an advanced piece, but this applies to music at any level. I bet you any piece that you're learning right now, you're doing this in that piece. There will be some point where you need to move your hand. The note before should not be bashed, but it is bashed for basically those two main reasons. So I hope that video is useful for you. There'll be more in this series. And as always, if this is useful for you, please click like, subscribe, click on the notification bell to find out when I'm going to be releasing more videos. And actually, I should have said this right at the beginning of the video, but one thing that maybe I should have made clear is this is one of the biggest problems with people studying classical music. This isn't really a problem with people who improvise and play jazz, rock and pop, for the reason that people already have an idea in their minds of what they want it to sound like. But this is a huge problem in classical piano. Anyway, so thank you for tuning in. Leave any comments if you'd like to. Comments are always appreciated. And I'll see you at the next video. Go do some practice or go watch more of my videos. Take care. Goodbye.